Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. This is the 4th episode of the Wrestle Chop podcast. Change the name, Wrestle Chop, no longer Move Over Kids. It's a new day here at the channel, and we're upgrading a lot of ways. And today we're going to talk about what wrestling means to you, to me, to everybody. Hopefully you'll comment below, get a chance to win the belt. I'll talk about that later, but just comment below what it means to you. But we're going to start off with John. You weren't here last week. We were talking about a lot of things, King of the Ring, whatever, but it was interesting. We were like, what does wrestling mean to us? Because it was kind of sparked off a couple of weeks ago when it was like, what does the championship mean? And now it's like, well,
right.
to define that, because we all have different definitions, and it's kind of weird, because what does baseball mean to someone? Baseball is baseball, but wrestling is this amalgamation of everything. You like so many things.
And kind of sports and athleticism.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Renaissance Fair.
You know what?
Sure, why not?
The Vikings, there are Vikings.
I mean, the Brood.
Yeah. So before that, I'm going to drink a Prime Energy. I did a video on Logan Paul, and I thought, you know what? I'm liking Logan Paul. Maybe I'll like his energy drink. So I bought this today. I'm going to drink it. I'll do a review of it later. Not getting paid, unfortunately.
Your pee gonna glow in the dark, boy.
That's okay. That's okay.
Dude.
Maybe I'll get superpowers like the Hulk. John, what does wrestling mean to you?
Or even let me ask John, what is pro wrestling to you? I think that's maybe a better way to phrase that question. What even is it?
Why pro wrestling? No.
I'll do you one better.
Anyway.
It is, I mean, it is a long form storytelling that just I gel with at the same time. Like, I will forever remember the Monday night where I first turned on the Monday Night Wars. It was the night Goldberg won the title.
Oh wow, that was your first?
That was my first. I was a little older getting into it.
Wow. That's interesting.
And just being captivated by like the whole, I mean, the NWO, like this, and one thing, wrestling has always given me a place of belonging. I had moved to a new town. I was trying to figure out who I was because I was like 13, 14. Didn't know, I was coming into like, establishing my own identity. And like the NWO shirt, man, I loved wearing that shirt because it made me feel like I was a part of something bigger. And I think the more like you got to know, the more I like found wrestling fans. And at that time, it was really easy to find wrestling fans. I felt connected. And then like to go through years later when like I did my brief stint training, I really just wanted to try something. It wasn't like I really wanted a wrestling career. I just, I didn't even, I so much respect to the guys that have the dream and make it work and, will live out of their cars and whatnot. I just wanted to know what it was like to be in that ring.
So wait, for the record, you have professional wrestling training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I trained for about a year or so. I worked a handful of matches. Like I don't want to be like, I want to be very clear. Like I'd never call myself a worker. I would never like, I know I have an educated opinion because of that.
Based on the physicality part.
Physicality and the training and like the biggest part of training is psychology.
Okay.
Yeah, which is
fair.
Which is the storytelling and selling and
within the ring.
Within the ring or outside the ring or with you're working.
Were you ever a booker or anything like that?
No, I did so things I had done on the original shows. I did ring crew, set up the ring.
Cool.
I ran music. Queuing up when people were coming out. I was a plant in the audience that got picked up and threw over a gate. And then I did run my own show, but someone else booked it for us. And then I did some, like I said, a handful of matches as in my gimmick, Reverend John Beeman, which, and once again, it gave me a sense of belonging. It gave me this amazing community. Like I am a better pastor for being in that community because of like what I experienced. Like I will never forget. Like I can't share that. Like I'm not going to go into the full. Like there was a night we were just hanging. 3 of us were hanging out in the ring, and like my world view shifted in a way where it felt like the ground was moving beneath me. And
Let me. Can I interrupt? So you said two things. You said your character was the Reverend, but then you said you were a better pastor because of it. So because you've mentioned it, I'll mention it now. John's real life job, his grown up job, he's a pastor of a church.
Yeah.
So but wrestler also the Reverend. So anyways, go on.
Currently, I'm an associate pastor at a large church, so
Okay.
I'm not the booker of that either. But no, it just I think it was just this community and the storytelling that's what I take away from it. And I think this ability to tell compelling stories with amazing physicality and sometimes not amazing, but things you can get away with. Sometimes it's so that's biggest thing if I ever like talking to younger people, like less is more. Less is more. That's my biggest takeaway. Like you don't have to be Ricochet all the freaking time. Love that guy. Love what he's able to do. But yeah, so it's just a story that gives a sense of belonging to me, I think, is what it's always been and what it means to me.
Okay, so okay, let's move on from that and let's get yours, and then we'll try to expound upon this more even. So go on, Jeremy.
JB, I really liked how you kind of started off with how you found pro wrestling before you talked about like how you see it as a fan or your perspective on it. I found pro wrestling kind of around the same age as you did. I was like 11, 12, 13. And I remember seeing Billy Gunn on, it had to be SmackDown because I was over at my grandparents' house. And SmackDown was on UPN. So it was the one you watched when you didn't have cable. You couldn't watch Raw because it was on UPN or USA. But I was in my grandparents' house. And they didn't have cable, so I saw Billy Gunn on Raw. I remember seeing HBK as well, and I just got my notebook, and it was one just like this, and I just started drawing just pictures of wrestlers on every page until my mom saw my notebook and said, "Who is Mr. Ass? Who is what are you
son?
What are you
son? We need to talk."
Yeah. All right, let's have a conversation about your media consumption. Anyway,
we got a camp we're sending you to.
But it became something that was my grandma had Alzheimer's, and so sometimes I would stay with her on Friday nights, and it became the thing that I looked forward to when I was staying with my grandma on Friday nights was watching SmackDown, and to go into kind of how I see it. I don't condone most of the things Jim Cornette says, but I think that his perspective on pro wrestling as or I remember hearing him talk about it, and he says you see two guys fighting on the side of the road. There's a giant and there's a little tiny guy, and you get the sense that there's been some injustice done to the small guy, and you get and they begin to go at it, and you're wondering if this guy can survive the onslaught from the bigger guy, and then you get the inkling that maybe he can win. And you start to feel something because you see yourself in the small person. You see yourself in the person that has been taken advantage of or done injustice. And that's what pro wrestling is. It's getting you to feel something based on the story you're viewing. It's theater, but it's also these feats of athleticism and this kind of stunt work. But also it's improvisational to a degree. Sure, there's an outline to a degree most of the time. But you have two people who are so good at using their bodies to tell a story that they can communicate in the midst of a live audience and being streamed on TV and make you feel something. You feel something when you're in the arena, but you also feel something on your couch. And that's like what pro wrestling is to me. It's making people feel with story. And kind of, so funny story is John Brown and I actually met getting our master's degree at Emory University to both be pastors. So I'm a pastor as well. And I remember talking to somebody.
I am the heathen of the group, though, so don't worry.
Anyway,
if you are heathen, you can just relate
Let's
to me.
be clear. Let's be clear, baby. I'm the heathen of the group. If you really want to compare notes, we can compare notes, baby. At any rate, but yeah, I remember talking to somebody, one of my friends who happened to be trans and had received some rough treatment from the church, had said the only reason they stayed a Christian was because they believed in the way that the faith communicated things through story. And it's just like, that's the most important thing about wrestling to me personally, is the way that they make points, that they show the nature of humanity or just make us laugh, right? Through story. We sit together, whether we are in an arena or whether we're sitting at home, like huddled around a glowing box. and we take in the same story and react to it together in different ways. So what is it? That's what pro wrestling is to me. What is it to you, Ken?
You know, you guys have all these like deep, profound things, and I'm just like, I just like watching guys beat each other up, right? No, but yes, I do actually. But
I told you, Ken, it's a OnlyFans for that, baby. I've been telling you, it's an OnlyFans for that.
All right, hey, groceries are high. I might sign up. But no, my job now though, I sling tacos. I make tacos. That's pretty much what I do nowadays, since we're telling each other's jobs. However, I'll say this. Wasn't gonna plan to say it, but I'll say it. Got monetized today on the channel. So if these videos keep on rolling and we keep succeeding like we are, it's only been a month and a half and we got monetized. So who knows? Maybe this becomes a full-time gig and we could be producing videos every day, better videos every day. I can like cut back my hours at the job if the pay's there and whatever, and then we could do more of these podcasts and whatever. Because those guys are doing it for free, by the way, and they're just nice gentlemen. But what does wrestling mean to me? I'll start with how I started. I think I've said it on the channel before here and there. I don't know. Whatever. It was WrestleMania 5. I can date back. I always know how many years I've watched wrestling because it was literally WrestleMania 5. I was at Myers. It's you could say like a higher end Walmart, local to the northern region, Michigan at least. I was at Walmart, and you remember how you'd walk down an aisle and you see all the TVs? So I'm walking down this aisle, and there's an advertisement for WrestleMania 5 tonight. I had no clue what wrestling was. Never talked about it, never nothing. I didn't know who Hogan, Andre the Giant, nobody. And I'm just like looking at this. I'm like, I go to my dad, and my dad comes. Me and my dad, we never connected with anything. Great guy. Great guy, but like, I don't know. We just didn't talk to each other. And I'm like, can we get this? And he was just like, yeah, we'll get it. And I'm like, okay. I didn't know it was going to cost like $80 or anything. I'm just like, can we get it? And my dad, he was always trying to figure out a way to just make me happy. I think he knew he couldn't connect with me. So like whenever I wanted something, which wasn't often, he would just give it to me. And so I go home, we turn it on, and holy crap. I remember the Rockers versus the Twin Towers, the Powers of Pain. I remember when Rick Martel turned on Tito Santana, the Strike Force. It was like, I just blew my mind. And then I saw the Ultimate Warrior run down the ring. Instantly, I had a favorite wrestler. Instantly, I was just like completely captivated. I was probably in 4th grade. 1979 is when I'm born. I'm 44 years old right now. WrestleMania. So here, like I said, do the math. It's WrestleMania 4, 35 years ago. 35 minus 44, I'm 9 years old. So I'm 9 years old watching WrestleMania, just completely captivated. Rick Rude, Ultimate Warrior's taking Rick Rude over with a suplex, the ropes. Bobby Heenan pulls his leg, holds it down, and Rick Rude gets the victory. I'm like, that's so unfair. I'm just appalled, and then Hogan wins. The Mega Powers explode. Maybe if I had saw Hogan before Warrior, I would have been a Hogan fan, but I saw Warrior before Hogan, so I was always a Warrior fan over Hogan. Now, later in life, I will say, from what I've heard, I don't think I like Warrior's personal life. So I will make the distinction between the two. Warrior, the human, and Warrior, Ultimate Warrior. Loved Ultimate Warrior, though. So I just fell in love with it. And from that point forward, I never really hung out with people outside of school. I had friends inside the school building, but never had friends outside the school building. And so wrestling then, after WrestleMania 5, remember, I had no idea what wrestling was. So then after WrestleMania 5, I was just, okay, I guess I just didn't watch wrestling again until one day again at Myers. I see it was Saturday morning. Saturday Morning Superstars was playing on the TVs, and I'm like, wait, this is on every week? And so I just started watching it. I was like, I went, we had a TV guide. We had a paper that told us what was on TV. I looked through it. Superstars every Saturday, and then Wrestling Challenge every Sunday. USA Prime Time every Monday night. I watched it. And I didn't have any friends. So I just, they were my friends. I just watched wrestling all the time. From that point forward, I got every pay-per-view. Thankfully, my dad was, like I said, he would just give me whatever I wanted. And we eventually would connect more on comic books because he actually enjoyed comic books. So there's a whole other father-son tale that goes with this, but that was one of the beginning things that my dad never did for me. And he would take me to wrestling events too. So on some level, there's probably this father-son connection that I didn't have anywhere else. But wrestling brought that. Wrestling brought all these things. And I remember also, and this is kind of weird, a point that I would make is, like I said, I didn't have a lot of friends, right? But I remember when Owen Hart died. I literally, a lot of times I feel like, okay, and no shade, I'll see people get really, heartbroken over celebrities dying. Oh, Robin Williams meant a lot to me. And there's a part of me that's sometimes like, did he really? But then I think back to Owen Hart actually meant a lot to me. He was like a friend to me, and I was just completely, I've never felt that way with somebody I've never met before. And that's what wrestling does. You really feel these characters. That's why I'll get really worked up sometimes, more so because I'm defending a friend. I'm defending this thing. And I used to say it, so I totally get why people say wrestling's like a soap opera, but I no longer even say that. I'm like, no, wrestling's just wrestling. Wrestling's awesome. It has all these elements, and you should just watch it. It's not a soap opera. It's better than a soap opera. And wrestling, to me, I want wrestling to make sense. I do understand when people say, oh, well, it's just fake, or, John, you had said something earlier that I kind of pushed back on a little. It was off the air. What did you say? Something like, well, if they write a compelling enough story, then that doesn't matter. A doesn't matter. B doesn't matter. And I said something along like, well, if you say that, then, what's the point of talking? I want to argue about this stuff. And it's not arguing. To me, it's discussing. I even just did a video I don't want the Wyatt 6 to happen, right? And I got a crap ton of people telling me how I'm not a real fan, I'm not this, I'm not that, stop being a hater. And I'm like, I'm not being a hater, I'm just I'm voicing an opinion because I love talking about wrestling. And I think the word gets thrown out too much nowadays. Oh, we got a community, we're building a community. But I really do feel that the wrestling community, it is an actual community. The wrestling fans are actual community. I dare Taylor Swift to walk out into that crowd and not get completely torn to shreds by her fans. You can have The Rock, the biggest star in the world. Looks like we lost Jeremy. I'm hoping he'll come back on. I'm going to keep going, though. You can have The Rock, the biggest star in the world, go into the arenas fighting Seth freaking Rollins, and everybody just keeps their hands off him, right? They keep their hands off him. They're respectful. Everybody's cheering. The most you might get is a pat on the back. Now, has there been a fan who taken it too far? Maybe, but those are the exceptions to the rule. You can see wrestling fans are so freaking respectful and so that's what wrestling is to me. I don't know how I would equate that to one word or one sentence. Maybe you could, John, everything I said, you could equate that for me because you're a little more eloquent than I am. But I would say that just the overall package, and that's not even getting into the fact that it is comedy, R-Truth. It is horror, Bray Wyatt, or going back Undertaker / Kane. That story, all horror. It is
In the Brood.
the Brood. It is athleticism.
Right.
Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels Iron Man match. It is the everyday man winning. Stone Cold Steve Austin.
So let me ask you then, both of y'all, is there any, I think my friends have clocked me on this. I get a little defensive when I'm talking to non-marks about the fact that I love wrestling. I can get defensive because I think that there's a tendency to match wrestling fandom with anti-intellectualism, or you know what I'm saying, or just I wonder why that would happen.
I used to be the same way. I used to be the same way.
Wonder why that would happen. But I guess I wonder then, my question for y'all is, what is something that you wish that folks who don't watch wrestling understood about wrestling? And we don't have to go too deep into it, but what's something that you wish that people understood about how wrestling comes to, like, about what it is and its culture and history?
I just spoke a lot. I'll let you talk, John.
I think going to the intellectual thing, like, didn't me and you like share an article with one another that like showed that like actually wrestling? Oh, Jeremy's frozen again. There was an article I think that they put out there that did some demographic work, and actually wrestling fans are fairly well educated, at least by degrees. And I think it was really interesting. Like AEW fandoms were the most likely to have multiple or have master level degrees. WWE fans were fairly likely to be college educated, and so forth and so on. So it's always interesting to me, like the idea of anti-intellectualism. I think the thing, in that, like, in this day and age when we know the secret, we know the secret. Like it is, the secret is we know.
Yeah, it's almost like it's almost insulting now when you tell us, because it's like, come on, guys, we know.
Well, like, okay, you know, the response is like, it's fake, right? I'm like, yeah, and I also know Captain America didn't beat up Thanos.
Whoa. Moving on.
Well, I mean, like, it's a story.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
It's in the same vein.
I was just joking.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Again, I know you at this point. Like, it's just like, yeah, and like, neither is The Bachelor. And neither is like Survivor. Like, it's a story. I'm compelled. Like, the thing that like annoys me is like, you try to compare it to NFL or NBA or whatnot, but it's like it's really interesting to look at, like, ESPN exists to wrestleize rest of sports, because the story
to it.
The add story to it, make it more compelling. If you watch the Olympics, oh my God, the vignettes in the Olympics are right. Well, little Johnny always had the dream of doing 2-man luge with his buddy Benny. They were from the wrong sides of the luge track. Like, you build that story up, so it's more compelling when you watch the actual thing. So like, I wish, like, people stop looking like, I don't think a lot of people do this anymore. It happens occasionally that like someone's like, well, it's fake, and it's like, so is most of anything on that TV box, man. Like,
right.
I actually had for the first time in a long time, someone told me it was fake. WrestleMania weekend, I told my staff, I was like, guys, I swear to God, you guys better get along tonight, because I am watching wrestling, and whoever calls me with a problem, there will be a problem. I was like, you gotta figure this out tonight and tomorrow. Do not bug me. Why? What are you doing? WrestleMania 40, baby. They're like, what? And then someone's like, it's fake. But you know what? Now I lead into it. I just lead into it. I'm like, I'll be like, oh, what did I say? It was just so, I forget what I said, actually. I wish I could. Now I'm blanking on the spot. But
I really like to let people dig their own graves, like in general argument. And so often when people say wrestling, or when I reach a situation like that, I often just go, which part? Like, which part? Like, what do you mean? Like, are you saying that the folks never come to blows? Are you saying that, like, when they are dropped, you know what I mean, from the top turnbuckle, that gravity turns off. Like, what do you mean? Like, which part is fake? You know what I mean? Or at the very beginning of a match, you play the very beginning of the match, you just pause it and you say, all right, so who's gonna win? Since it's not compelling enough to watch the story through and allow these allow these performers to do their art that happens to be predetermined. You know what I mean? Like who's gonna win? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there is a revelation, there is intentionality and story there that makes any media, any pre-written media compelling. You know what I mean? It's present in wrestling too.
I wish what you were saying, you said, how could you, like, what would you do or something to make, or what you wished could make people, like, I don't know, see the light when it comes to wrestling? Honestly, 4 weeks and a pay-per-view. 4 weeks and a pay-per-view. Just give it 4 weeks and a pay-per-view. And I, maybe, sometimes not even that. Sometimes just the pay-per-view. Like, no doubt, 100% of everybody who's ever watched wrestling with me have always walked away with a new appreciation. I remember, like, there was a person that was kind of stuck at my house for WrestleMania 40. By the end of it, they were just completely blown away how great it was. And I would, I'm putting up the finger for Roman. I'm like, everybody in the house, recognize Roman, acknowledge the tribal chief. I would make everybody do, but like, I would just getting into it. If you could just let yourself go, forget about everything. That's what YouTube is, right? People just want mindless entertainment. Like, or
it's not even mindless entertainment, but like you're saying, it's suspending disbelief.
Entertainment.
It's just being in. It's being along for the ride and suspending disbelief.
And don't even
to try and see
toe.
what they're trying to tell you. It's not about nitpicking and finding the imperfections. It's about the way that they presented this story. What are they trying to tell me? Not like how can I nitpick at it and why it's not perfect. But what are they trying to communicate?
Yeah, don't dip your toe in it. When Jey Uso comes out, yeet with him just to have fun. Like, you can have fun with it. If you don't like Jey Uso, then boo him. Like,
sure. I guess what I'm saying is like my wife and I just aren't crowd participation people.
Like,
I hate being at a concert and somebody says, "Now I want everybody to sing." No, I won't. You do. You sing. Ooh. I paid you $50.
Okay. Well, you know what? But that's a beautiful thing too. We don't have to. Right. You can be the one in 19,000 that's not. You paid for your ticket.
Right.
You are
exactly.
You are participating in a certain way still. I'm sure you're going to participate with somebody else some way. When Cody finishes his story, you're probably going to cheer. Or when R-Truth asks for a hot tag during the Royal Rumble, you're probably going to laugh. You are participating still.
Oh, speaking of, that reminds me of a great point. You were talking about what kind of things could get people to see the light or kind of help to spark an appreciation. Not fandom, right?
Yeah, go on.
But I was just going to say, you mentioned PLEs. So I had some folks over my house to watch Backlash in France. And no one at the entire party had ever intentionally watched wrestling or watched it long form. But from the beginning of the show, the same people that were saying, so just to be clear, this is fake, right? When by the time they saw an RKO happen, they were all going like responding to the physicality being presented by the performers. You know what I mean? And I will quote John Brown in saying the best possible PLE to introduce people to wrestling is the Royal Rumble. I hate it because I hate matches where the ring gets crowded. I mean, it's just not my favorite. I don't hate it. I hate it, but it's just not my favorite. It's just like when there's too much action, and then half the people in the Rumble don't feel like they have to sell. Like if their main thing isn't going on, they kind of just half wrestle. And then I don't go back and watch the Royal Rumble. One of my favorite wrestlers, Bianca Belair. Every time she got hit, she did not sell. She just fell on the ground and rolled away like a log. Go back and watch Bianca through the entire Rumble. Anyway,
see, I want to say one thing on that. As wrestling fans who are invested in everything, we're allowed to kind of make fun of Bianca Belair in that situation. But like a non-wrestling fan, they're not allowed to. Go on, John.
I think you got, but I think in those situations you have to give it to them. You have to be like, oh yeah, that was kind of funny.
Then you and then you kind of explain. You do kind of explain. Well, the reason why,
right.
And sometimes
right.
I will explain the breakdown and the analysis of the reason why they are doing something in for kayfabe / real life purposes, and and the people appreciate that as well. John.
Yeah, no. So Jeremy hit my point. Like the experience I had, like we had this. It was a church youth group. My wife. It was at my wife's. My wife is also a pastor. There's so many pastors in my life. We were having her church's youth group over. A good friend of ours was my wife's youth director at the time. And I was like, hey, let's just have a Royal Rumble at the party at the house. And none of these kids had ever watched wrestling. And I'm like, okay, I want to have multiple things going on just, because I remember like Super Bowl parties and like we went to hang out. Like it wasn't necessarily about the thing that was on.
Yeah.
And so we've got pizza, we've got a TV with Mario Kart right here, we've got the Royal Rumble. And like, they were all kind of like, what is this thing? And like by the end of the Rumble, they were, and I love the Rumble because it's like the mega buffet of wrestling. Like you're gonna get to know, like even with these little short intricacies, you're gonna get to know people at least through their entrance, and that like little moment where the camera's on them, like when they make their entrance and they do their things, like you're gonna get a feel for who they are. And it was just so crazy. Like John Cena, like they do, like at that point in time, John Cena was just starting to break into movies. So these kids had an appreciation of who John Cena was. And that was like the first like line, like, okay, this is interesting. And by the end of it, they were so enamored. They all were behind. It was the year Shinsuke won. And they were all behind it. Like they were like this guy coming out like Michael Jackson and just doing his thing, and like it was so crazy because like I was taking pictures and like watching, you can watch the room shift focus to the different TV, and they were popping, like they popped like no one I have ever had in my house watching on TV pop. And I think that's and I've used the Royal Rumble multiple times to get like, I was like, hey, I had a friend and his wife like, this is a silly thing that John's into. I'm like, come check this out. And they didn't love it afterwards. I don't think they like, it was quite Jeremy's backlash experience, but they're like, oh, this is so silly, it's good. Yeah, it was
they at least had an appreciation of it.
Yeah.
It was no longer lowbrow.
Yeah, and to like Jeremy's point, I generally agree about the ring crowded thing, but that's why I love the Royal Rumble, because like battle royales suck.
Yeah,
like they're especially like live or like live on TV. Like they're okay if you're in person.
What about World War III?
Oh God, like they tried. God bless them. They tried so hard. Like, but because you don't get you don't get those character moments. You just have this mass. Actually, one of the matches I did work was a battle royal, but I was so gassed from it was the match after my first match on my first card. I was just like so gassed. I'm like, just someone knock me out. I want to go sit down.
Punch me.
Just knock me out for the love of God. But like, the Royal Rumble just is this thing where you get it. Like you get a sense of everybody. Like everyone's story converges. I mean, that's why I like it more than Rumble. Like almost every storyline converges. It's like Infinite Crisis in Crisis on Infinite Earths. Every storyline converges and then shoots back out. It's this really cool little prism thing. And I think the Royal Rumble is a great way if you got people willing to just take the ride with you.
I could see that. I 100% agree. I always have a difficulty of. I think the Royal Rumble is actually my favorite. I actually put it above WrestleMania just a little.
Hands down, yeah.
Yeah, but every once in a while there's a bad Rumble, like when Shane McMahon was in the last couple years ago, and bad Rumbles are the worst because you're like, because basically you can have like WrestleMania 40, the Jay versus Jimmy match, that sucked, but there was a lot of other good things that happened, right? So you can forget about it. But you have a bad Rumble, your year starts off bad because the Rumble's it.
I mean,
if
you've taken our advice and invited your friends to the Rumble who don't watch wrestling, it's just like, or I won't even use that. I'm just saying, whenever I invite my friends over to watch wrestling, I just look at the TV like, you better not embarrass me.
Yeah, right.
You better, you know what I mean? Like, you better.
That was
You better
actually
be a good
that
show.
was actually the point I was making with Wyatt 6 in my video. I was like, guys, I just don't. I think we're beyond the spooky part of horror. We can do the creepy part of horror still, like Dexter Loomis stalking somebody. We can still do that. That's still scary. We can do certain things like, you know, a bloodbath even, but we can't do lightning bolt from my fingers. We can't do demon anymore. I mean, you could do the demon Finn Balor, but as long as we know that he's not an actual demon. You know what I'm saying?
I feel like I understand why you're saying that, and I feel like it's the kind of thing that, and there might be a lot of folks who agree with you.
No,
I don't necessarily disagree with you.
There's a lot that disagree with me. Trust me.
but I think that that's going to be the case for you until we get another character that really knocks the kind of supernatural thing out of the park.
I thought
because it was fine.
I thought the Fiend went too far.
I don't know. I would have said,
and I don't mean with like intensity. I mean somebody that like it has a solid character that's been constructed intentionally, and you have the perfect person to bring that to life. That's what I mean. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I would have thought that way before the Wyatt family. Like, we're never gonna get this good at gimmick wrestling again. Like, we're just not gonna get it, and like it's never gonna get over. Like, we want, you know, flippy and almost MMA. Yeah, we want everyone's gimmick to be an MMA fighter. I know that is a gross simplification, please forgive me, but like when Bray,
we hear what you're saying, though.
Bray getting over as much as he did, even with the Fiend character, I'm like, oh, this is,
you know what though,
it's harder to get, I will admit, like, it's harder to get over, and I think it is.
I loved the Wyatt family though.
Yeah,
a cult leader Bray, loved that one. The Fireflies, loved it. I was even okay with that little kid singing "I Got the Whole World in My Hands" and John Cena froze. I was okay with all of that because within the realm of reality, it can still have. But the Fiend taking 20 curb stomps, I was not okay with that because you know.
I was like, I don't know. It got over. I liked it.
Oh, it did get over. 100% it got over.
Yeah, I think my issue was like they didn't plan that well for a non-DQ match because the match ended in a DQ.
Yeah, that's
it's like, which is fair. Like, you know, on one hand, I'm like, yeah, you probably should stop a match before it results in murder. But I can't say you can't do that anymore because they did it when I didn't think it was possible anymore.
Well, again,
and I think the right talent. You know, I'm curious. I'm curious to see how well they can do this tribute gimmick, which is what it is. It's a tribute gimmick, because we've got to resolve something with that Uncle Howdy stuff, and I'm excited for Bo Rotundo to get his shot.
Oh, I love that
because he like was, I don't know, like there was so much. He was one of the ones. He was I think he's the prototype of the NXT guy with so much promise that just got destroyed when he got to the main roster.
Yeah,
I mean,
he had 3
weeks. Everyone was talking about like how great this kid was going to be and how amazing he was going to be, and he gets up to the main roster and it's just like they're like this Bo Leave thing just wasn't connecting, and like
I love Bo Leave.
I'm not saying it was a bad thing, but it just, like, to be honest, it just did not connect. Like,
well. But but here's the difference. It connected with me. It did not connect with you. But the Fiend connected with you. Did not connect with me. And literally, I'm okay with it. But in my video, I got so many people and I try to tell people, like, guys, we're allowed to not like certain things. It's okay. Like, I don't need to argue with you, John, about why I don't feel the Fiend really works.
Whoa.
Wait. Both of y'all.
I gotta respond to one thing.
Okay, go ahead.
You don't gotta argue with me. Then why the hell am I here?
Well, we'll argue about
that's what I'm trying to say.
Because championships matter. Championships matter.
Let's have some kind of order to the production of this podcast. So, as is often brought up by our arguments. Let's call them that. You know what I mean? I want to know what makes pro wrestling good to you. Like we know what pro wrestling is to you, but we seem to have very different opinions on what makes it compelling for us. So like we know that it's story, but what elements of story have to be present for you to be engaged in what a promotion is doing?
Okay, while we think on that, Jeremy, we'll let you go first because John went first on the other. I'm going to say that I actually do enjoy this. You're thinking, I do enjoy this Prime drink. I still.
What flavor is it?
It's tropical punch. I got it. I probably should have got one that I do drink Red Bulls. I probably should have got one that was a 1-to-1 with Red Bull because they don't have tropical punch. But that's the reason why I bought it. It's pretty good though. Like I can see myself.
I've had the ice pop flavor, but the one that you put into water, not the one. Like, oh, I've also had the bottle, but I prefer the one that you put into the water.
You know what this tastes like? One of those freeze pops that melted. You know.
Yeah.
That's what it tastes like. So it might be too sweet for some people, but I do think it's great. And then one other thing, hang on.
And Ken is going to be giving to anyone who writes down in the comments, I love Prime. Ken is going to be giving a lifetime subscription to Prime. He's going to be giving you a bottle of Prime for daytime and nighttime of every day from here until the end of time. So if you just in the comments write, I love Prime.
That is a lie. That is a lie. However, if you do write I love Prime, that enters you in a chance for this, and this is out of my own pocket. So this is the world, the Winged Eagle, still the WWF, the Federation before they got the F out. You could win this. Every video with a comment enters you into a chance to win. Until we hit 10,000 subscribers. Once we hit 10,000 subscribers, I give the belt away. I announce the winner on video, not in the comments. So do not give any personal information out in the comments. And then I'll probably do another giveaway to do 25,000. Then, whatever. Or eventually it'll just be every WrestleMania. Excuse me. It'll just be whatever because I do want to. I am gonna voice this out here. I do have the audacious goal of taking this to be a more full-time gig. I really am enjoying it and loving it, and I appreciate. Again, this is what pro wrestling is to me. I appreciate being able to just talk about it with you guys out there in YouTube land, but plus you two out here in whatever land we are on. Anyways, Jeremy, answer your own question.
So, I would say, I am a promo guy. I'm a mic skills guy. So I want to start there. There has to be compelling, compelling verbal presentation. For me, right? And I say that being more akin and attuned to WWE's rhythm of what happens. But two big things for me, and I'll kind of back off so that you guys have time to share. There has to be good talking. Whoever has the mic has to be saying something and has to be saying something that's impactful. And the next thing I would say is consequence. So that's consequence in storyline beats, consequence in ring psychology. If somebody is working the leg in a match, you know what I mean? If somebody's working a leg in a match, that needs to be a part of the finish somehow. Whether it leads to the downfall of the person or if it's something that they have to overcome to get the pin, right? But you can't just, he's been working the leg for the first half of the match and it's completely inconsequential exactly to the end of the match. So those are two things that are important to me. What about y'all?
Well, let's go with John next. John does have to get out of here soon. So if at any point, John, you have to leave, answer your own question. And then even if you have to cut everything, I can do a outro in post. So go.
Okay. Oh, what does it mean? Okay.
What makes wrestling good to you? I think.
Yeah. No, I think Jeremy hit Jeremy initiated it right there. Like the whole reason I wanted to train was to get a mic. I didn't really care about flipping or taking bumps. Like that was cool. Don't get me wrong, that was awesome. But it was getting a microphone to just let loose and say things I couldn't say elsewhere. And so the mic work is key, But I think to me, it's the mic work is another ingredient in making a compelling character. I think creating a compelling character, and like there's different things for different characters. Like for like Paul Heyman, the mic work is all the way up here almost. Like he is much more compelling when he's the one talking. That's I think compare him with Brock Lesnar, compared him with CM Punk. I think he was much better used with Brock Lesnar. But I'm a bigger CM Punk fan. So I think when you craft a compelling character, uh, with the right the right amount of ingredients, and the ingredients are different for each character, is what really gets to me. Like Sting, I was fortunate. I went to Dragon Con a few years ago, and Sting and Flair were doing a panel together. And someone got up and it's like, well, you guys both have the gift of gab, and Sting was like, no, I don't know you could say that about me.
No.
He's like, my most compelling year was when I
Didn't
stood
say
up in the
nothing.
rafters and said nothing. He's like, I got better, and like I think you can look to my TNA work when the Joker Sting became a thing. I had a little bit more there. But Sting was always compelling to me. Like I loved Sting, even not saying something, his ring work, and that dark gimmick. Like I think I've talked about, like I traveled to see Sting's retirement match, because that story from the get-go was always so compelling to me. So like I think good character is what makes wrestling good to me.
Definitely everything. I mean, the character work, the like you said, the psychology in the ring. Like Bret Hart was like a master at that. Focus on the leg. The leg's going to come into play. Right now, they're doing kind of that with Bianca Belair. Her leg has been injured in two Queen of the Ring matches, and I really hope that plays into how she loses, honestly. Or they really focus on that. Wow, she's such a trooper. She did it. Because I think Bret Hart had to fight through a leg injury throughout his King of the Ring, and if they're trying to do a 1-to-1, Bianca's a very good one to do with Bret Hart. But I don't like plot holes in anything, and I need the stories to really the storyline to make sense. You can't just have a throwaway. There's a part of the Bloodline story that still bugs me, that Jimmy pulled Jay out of the SummerSlam match. There was never he gave a reason, but that reason didn't make sense based on the actions in which Jimmy took after. You could say Jimmy said, "Hey, I didn't want you to become like our brother Roman, or our cousin Roman." So that part made sense. But then when Jimmy goes right back to being Roman's henchman, then that reasoning no longer made sense. So at some point they had to have Roman should have just said, "Hey, we made him an offer and he took the offer," or something like that. And then Jimmy's reasoning was a lie or something. It all has to make sense. And then what happens is, though, I'll find a little point like that, because it was a big point at the time. But if I were to go online and tell people that right now, I made a short video, I guarantee you a ton of people would tell me, just enjoy the storyline. Just enjoy the storyline. But that defeats the purpose of wrestling to me. Because I'm not saying it's real to me, but it's more than a storyline to me. And so it has to make sense. Just like I don't, just like the movie Avengers, it has to make sense. They can't just plot device things, even though they do. I get it. The Infinity Stones, you can say, is a MacGuffin or whatever. But like it has rules, and within that universe, you have to follow those rules. And that's why a lot of times there'll be things like, parts of the Star Wars trilogies that like suddenly take me completely out of it, because I feel that a plot hole has happened. And so and wrestling is 52 weeks a year, 2 times a week, 1 time a month. I love storylines. I love characters within storylines, and it's always happening. So that's, to me, storylines that are continuous and make sense. and they try. Like even the Cody Rhodes thing, when Cody gave up his spot, that didn't make sense. But they at least they eventually gave kind of a reason. It made sense.
Did you see that stuff that's come out recently about how
I did, but
Cody?
I did, and I might even do a video on it. So I want to make sure John gets out of here before we go into something. But what he's referring to is that Dave Gerwish, I forget how to pronounce his last name. I apologize. Basically, The Rock's personal writer, someone who did write.
Brian Gewirtz.
Brian Gewirtz, thank you. Not even Dave. He said that the original plan was to give it to The Rock, the main event, but when Cody gave it to The Rock, he had that sad puppy dog face instead of this good like I'm handing you the baton to get the job done moment.
He was supposed to be visibly excited about giving the opportunity up.
And Brian did say though, because Cody is Cody, he couldn't, and he's so real, and they had a pivot. And he even said, "Thank God they did pivot." But whatever. I would love to talk about that. I might talk if we don't talk about it. If I don't talk about it in a pure video this week, let's talk about it next week. Let's get out of here. John, any closing words?
I like wrestling. Wrestling is good.
Wrestling is good. Jeremy.
Yeah, man. Really, just what John Brown said, man. I love wrestling. We love wrestling, and we're glad that you all choose to share this fandom with us. Don't forget to write what you like about wrestling in the comments. You know what I mean? You might get the winged eagle. Yeah, you might get the winged eagle.
And I did order 2 more belts already for the next contest. So let's hurry up and get to 10,000 so I'll give another one of these away. Wrestling is good. I love wrestling, and I acknowledge
that should have been the name of the podcast.
Wrestling is good.
Wrestling is good.
Maybe. I acknowledge how good wrestling is, just like I hope you acknowledge the subscribe button. I acknowledge both of you. Thank you for spending your afternoon with me, and everyone, have a great day.